All right. Welcome, everyone, to the My Million Year Monthly Speaker Series. I'm your host, Bryant, and joining me is my co-host, Ed. We're both life coaches, and our goal is to help our community members realize and achieve their dreams. So we take a practical approach to coaching based on our own experiences, and we recognize completely that financial independence is a key part of taking control of your life. So for our members, we set our sights on hitting that first 1 million in net worth, hence our name, My Million Year. That's the year you get to 1 million. So I'm really excited about today's agenda. We'll be covering career change, the Backdoor Roth IRA, our fan favorite community building and networking session, and last but not least, a Q&A with my good friend, Andrew Stanco from Digital Bank One. By the way, Andrew, I'm a big fan of the new branding. My wife is a UX designer, and she thinks this is really smart. That you love the one inside of the O here. That you got
there
a
was
one.
Like a
there's a one in there. Really smart.
Our marketing team was quite proud of themselves. For
Great
that
job.
One.
Great job. So let's get started. First up is our member spotlight, and today I want to spotlight my good friend Amy Liu. We met at Ernst & Young many years ago, and she recently got a new job at Wellington Management, and we're so excited for that. Amy, welcome.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks for having me. Hi, everyone.
So Amy, it's COVID time, and it's a tough job market. It always is tough, but especially now. What made you decide to make a move, from EY to Wellington?
So first of all, I will say everything is like two sides of one coin, right? So COVID indeed changed all of our life, but I think it's also a huge opportunity for all the people, career seekers, or people who are trying to learn new skills or making progress in their life personally or professionally. So honestly, one thing I find actually is like a dividend from the COVID is actually you are having interviews much easier. In the past, usually the interviews, it may be at least 3 rounds, right? And then sometimes a super day that will need to take you for the whole day. For some jobs that's in, other states, they may ask you to fly there or, get there, but not everything you can literally achieve from home. So I think that's considered a benefit or something that's more flexible to arrange. For example, for my job, I had 13 interviews in total from the beginning to the end. So because Wellington, they are really focused on culture and then the people kind of environment. They want to make sure you are a good fit for not only their team, but also almost 360 degree of the other teams that you are gonna work with. So I have a lot of interviews. In the past, it may really need to take me 2 days off, going to the Boston, etc. But now they can just slice and dice.
Just do it over Zoom, yeah.
And then exactly, and then do it virtually. So I think whenever you want to make a move, there's no right or wrong timing. I think the market's still pretty lively. I think surprisingly, I think Sharon was the role model for me because she's the first one from our team that actually was able to find a new job during the the prime time of COVID. I think last year April or right, Sharon is early on at that stage. Yeah, so I think as long as you know what you're looking for, I think the timing wise, it's always the world will help you with that. So don't worry about that. As for me, I think each person has her own story, right? So I think just for general advice, I kind of summarize my experience into a scorecard. I would think why I'm thinking to make a move is I will classify into 4 components, and whenever my scorecard is below the healthy score, that's the moment that I start to thinking about I'm looking for a change. Right? So I think the first and foremost, finance, right? You want to make sure you make good income, cash inflows, and that can cover your expenditures and then your goals and expectations of your future life. So financially, you need to feel satisfied from the work you're doing and also feel you are rewarded proportionally to the contribution you make. Right? And secondly is the job itself. Right? Does it still give you the feeling of challenge or satisfaction that you will not feel you hate yourself every morning, wake up and then turn on the computer? If you feel excited, you still think about how to improve your work from time to time, For example, in the past, I used to think about how can I further improve my work efficiency during my shower time. So I'm just constantly thinking about how can I improve or enable my team to do a better job, right? So this is the second component. And the third component, I think still very important, at least for me, is people. Do I like the people I work with? Do I like my colleagues? Do I feel the caliber, the collegiality from them? Do I have a good atmosphere or good surrounding with my clients? So the people component that makes you feel comfortable, I think it's also very important. And then the last category is all others, right? Because I think all of us have some other personal reasons that will prioritize either family, relationship, or, you know, as foreigner, visas, right? Like work visa, all the other considerations that will go into your scorecard. So I evaluate my own situation and then compare with my ideal state and then decided, okay, this is the time that I think I should start making a move.
That's a great point, Amy, and thanks for sharing that. I like your idea of a scorecard in evaluating, you know, what's important to you, and that really makes me think. You know, what you've boiled down to is you've identified a set of values, core values that are really important to you, that you probably evidence in your life, and that you want out of a career, right? You just want to be, living it, outside of work. You want to be living your values at work too, because you spend so much time at work. So yeah, I think making the move, finding the right fit, making your life better, happier, something that you're going to be satisfied with, you have to understand your core values. So I really like that you touched on that, and we'll definitely get into that in a future session. Some values seeking activity. But just real quick, Amy, what is the new role exactly at Wellington? What will you be doing?
Sure. So I'm joining a big team. They kind of reorganized, I think last year. They called Invest Tech. So it's a mixture of portfolio services and technology. So they reorganize and then make these two teams become like a gigantic team for under one partner. It's Wellington is also like EY. It's a partnership system. It's a private company. And then the exact team I'm doing will be a team called Derivative 2.0. So our goal is to help Wellington to refine and redesign and implement a new platform that can help them to trade and transact and booking all the derivatives to serve the clients better. Because for people who may be less familiar in what Wellington is doing or asset management in general, so we manage money for our clients. The clients are mostly pension funds like firefighter, teachers pension fund, or like school endowment. Like you got what I'm saying, right? So basically we manage client money. And then so in order to be a entrusted fiduciary, that we want to make sure, our people, process, and technology are robust so that we can trade and manage the client's portfolio efficiently. Right. And then Bryant, I think we both work in financial service for a very long time, like financial institutions are typically very falling behind in technology. I believe in Andrew's fintech, it will be much more robust, but traditionally, financial industry is very behind for technology improvement implementation due to a lot of reasons and a lot of legacy systems that too big to change, right? So we are trying to really like an internal consulting role, a program management role that trying to identify what are the key priority for over the horizon of like 5-year timeline. What are the budget that we can collect it from the partners, and then to identify the key partners we need to have from the business side, from the technology side, from the operational side, and then to make everybody working together towards a variety of different initiatives that to making the derivative platform more efficient. Got it.
I mean, it's great to see, firms really need to do that. The legacy players in financial services, asset management, banking really need to step it up, because the fintechs and the digital banks are catching up. They're looking to take on market share, and Andrew will tell us all about that a little bit later. But it's great to see this push towards innovation, right? Like without competition, without the push to improve and change, things would stay the same and be boring. So Amy, thanks so much for sharing your experience, and good luck with the new job. We're excited, and we'll check back in on updates.
Thank you, Brian, for having me.
Awesome. All right, so let's move on to the next segments. We've got Ed presenting our financial tip of the month. So Ed, why don't we talk about what you've got lined up for us, the Backdoor Roth IRA.
All right, so the Backdoor Roth IRA sounds kind of scary. It's not, it's kind of an unofficial term, Backdoor Roth. It's also called Roth conversions, but basically the Backdoor Roth IRA is just another way for you to save in a retirement account. So if you thought, hey, I've maxed out my 401k, the 19,500, there are other retirement accounts that you can save in, but you have to do it outside of your company. So you can, every year, in addition to the 19,500 you put into a retirement account through a 401k, you can also contribute $6,000 into an IRA. There are income limits to when you cannot contribute to a IRA, and that's where the Backdoor Roth comes in. So if you're single and you make over $125,000 a year, that starts getting phased out, and it's phased out completely at $140,000 a year. So if you make over or under 125, you can just put an extra 6,000, either traditional or Roth, into a regular IRA account. And you can open that through, pretty much all of the companies you can think of: Fidelity, Vanguard, Charles Schwab. But if you make over the 140,000, you can still put this money in, but you have to take an extra step. So how this works is you put in 6,000 post-tax into an IRA, and then you convert that immediately into a Roth. And then you just have to file that on your taxes, and then now you have $6,000 that you are saving in a retirement account. I'm not going to go into the details of how you actually do this. There's plenty of literature on how you do it, how to set it up. I want to spend more time on why you would do this. So the example that I've set up here is essentially what happens to $6,000 put in a Roth account or any retirement account, really. This example is really true for any retirement account. I'm just using the $6,000 cap for this backdoor Roth kind of scenario. So $6,000 in a retirement account versus $6,000 in a taxable account. So a taxable account is just, putting that in your Robinhood accounts or whatever it is, and saving that way. So the scenario I'm doing is $6,000 per year annual contributions for 40 years. So this is going to get a little bit more technical, but I think this group can handle it. So when you're investing in stocks or bonds, you generally have dividends. So it's annual payouts from these companies or the bonds. And these are taxed every year. So I think you hear a lot about capital gains and you don't pay the gains until you sell. That's not true for annual dividends. You pay taxes on that every single year that you hold the stock or the bond. So for this example, I'm using 2% annual dividends on the $6,000. And I'm assuming that 75% of these are qualified. I'm not going to get into the tax implications of what qualified versus unqualified are. But qualified is you get taxed at the capital gains rate, and then unqualified, you get taxed at your marginal rate. Next assumption, 6% annual investment return. We'll see how these annual dividends kind of compound on each other. The marginal tax rate, I'm assuming, is 43%. So this is at the highest, your assumed highest tax bracket. Most people don't pay this because you pay an effective rate, which is blended with all the other tax brackets. But because we're talking about incremental money, I'm using the highest tax bracket that you may be in. So this is including federal, state, and local, assuming you live in New York City. And then 15% is the capital gains rate, I'm assuming there. So the way the math works here is you take $6,000, 2% annual dividends is $120 of dividends. I'm using like a blended rate of the 43% marginal tax rate and the 15% capital gains rate to do 30%. So then the savings every year on this is $36. Doesn't sound like a lot, right? $36 on year one on that $6,000 that you invested. But if you think about it, in year 2, you get not only another $36 from the next $6,000 you put into this Backdoor Roth, but you get the first $36 as well. So now we're talking about around $72 plus any gains on the interest. I'm going to throw up a poll now, and I'm curious to see what people think here around. Hang on, how do I do this? I'm going to stop sharing for a moment and throw up a poll. After 40 years of doing this, what do people think the savings are from taxes through dividends? So you should see this on the right. $14,000 after 40 years, $70,000, $90,000, or $140,000.
All right, submit your answers now.
Submit your answers. What do you think? All right. I'm going to end this poll. We got answers kind of all over the place. Looks like the top answers are 90,000 and 140,000. And let me go back to sharing now. So the answer was the highest one. It's $140,000 from tax savings on the dividends, just for having the money sitting in a retirement account rather than a taxable account after 40 years. So what this looks like, I kind of broke this out. So the $36, obviously it's very low the first year. It doesn't even show up on the map here, but this keeps compounding. So this is just compound interest on your savings. So the $36, then the $72, and over time, you'll see how this compounds a lot. So the first $35,000 you save through doing this, it takes 27 years. But the next $35,000 takes 6 years, the next takes 4 years, the next takes 3 years. So just compound interest saving through dividends. So this is probably the least talked about part of retirement accounts, which is the dividends. The other more talked about is the actual capital gains. So when you take the money out of a Roth account, you don't pay any taxes on the gains. So this is pretty substantial as well. It depends on what kind of assumptions you use, but I estimate that at around $55,000 to $140,000. So this all goes into tax strategies of how you're withdrawing your money. So you could pay very little taxes, and you could only pay maybe $55,000. Or if you have a lot of income in retirement, it could be quite higher. So total benefit of doing something like this, around $200,000 to $280,000 in doing the Backdoor Roth. And again, this is just in where you put your money. So this is $6,000 in a retirement account versus $6,000 every year in a regular taxable account. And at the end of this, you'll have, $280,000 more. And this kind of undersells it too, because this assumes you're taking all of the money out when after 40 years. But in reality, you're probably taking it out slower. So you're actually getting even more savings on the dividends. So yeah, it's very, very powerful tool. I'm going to pause here for any questions. I know this was pretty technical.
Thanks for sharing that, Ed. I think the lesson here is if you're going to be saving and investing your extra money in a brokerage account, why not do it in an IRA? Why not do the Backdoor Roth IRA? Because the savings are huge and they're a lot bigger than I thought they would be. It's going to get you to your million year sooner. I think we could all use an extra 200K in the bank at the end of the day. So I love this tip. This is what I do every year. Ed does it every year. If you have some questions afterwards and you want to discuss, feel free to reach out to us at mymillionyear@gmail.com or contact us on our website. So happy to talk more about this on an individual basis to see how this approach could work for you.
Yeah, very, very powerful savings tools. So if there are no questions on this, I will do a few call outs. Retirement accounts aren't for everybody. So make sure you know what your short and long-term financial plans are, because there are limitations of what money you can take out. And then there's also a handful of tax rules that you should be aware of. Essentially, you can't have a pre-tax IRA when you're doing this conversion. It needs to be in your 401k. And then the last tip I'll leave you with is, if you have even more money to be saving, a lot of companies offer what's called a mega backdoor Roth. And if you're a self-employed employee, you can kind of set this one up yourself. But you can essentially put around another like $28,000 into Roth savings every single year. Very, very powerful tool. Not every employer offers it. I don't know why they wouldn't do it, but you increase your savings by a lot. So essentially, if you look at the total benefit here, around 200, 280, you kind of multiply that by 5 if you're doing the mega backdoor Roth every year, if you have that much to save. So definitely look into that as well.
Yeah, I just want to echo Ed. Thanks so much for sharing. I wish I knew this earlier, but I just started my backdoor Roth IRA. And then everybody, in case someone is as naive as I was, I didn't know this over the past 4 or 5 years or so when I started working in the US. Don't be afraid of the word backdoor. Actually, if you go to Fidelity, their website, you can search for this IRA conversion. So it's nothing illegal or anything. It's just like a way for you to really increase your saving and avoid being taxed heavily on your capital gain. Just like two key takeaways, right? So personally, I get hit pretty badly in 2020 for some money that I didn't even realize I have. Like I had invested a few mutual funds, and as you guys already know, last year was a pretty good year in terms of stock market globally for whatever reason. So I got dividends that actually I reinvested into those mutual funds. So actually I didn't enjoy any of those monies, but then I got a huge tax bill that I need to pay, I think almost $4,000 to the Fed, and another $1,400 to the New York State, which I was shocked. So I think using this strategy that Ed just shared can definitely release a lot of the tax burden on like your capital gain, your dividends, and also interest, even if you just put the money sitting there for like as the core sweep account. And then one alert is that you need to make sure, especially people who are maybe younger or like early on in your career stage, those money needs to be absolutely some money that you can put for long-term investment, because there's a 10% additional penalty if like one day you need that money for kind of emergencies. So make sure those money you put the 6K are the extra outside of your emergency or any money that you may need in a short horizon, because those money need to sit in the account until you are like 59.5 years old. Yeah.
Generally true. There are actually a lot of tax strategies where you do not need to wait till 59.5. So the Roth is one of them. You can take out principal. So the $6,000, you can actually take $6,000 out after 5 years of having that account open. What you would get penalized on is the gain. So if that 6,000 turns into 7,000, you can't take out the 1,000 gain without the penalty, but you can take out the principal after 5 years. So there are restrictions on retirement accounts, but there's so many strategies, even with pre-tax, that you can kind of skirt the rules and take money penalty free.
Yeah, exactly. When I was when my wife and I bought this condo, we were looking into whether we needed to withdraw some cash from our Roth account to pay for the down payment on the home, and there are certain rules that allow you to take out up to 10,000 if it's a first time home purchase from your Roth, penalty free. So there's a lot of stuff that we can dive into on Roth IRA, traditional IRA. I think this is worth another session that we can dive into in more detail. But Ed, thanks for sharing those tips, and we'll keep an eye on more personal finance strategies in the future.
Bryant, Ed, I have one quick question on the IRA stuff.
Yeah.
So I think, Ed, you touched upon it briefly with regards to, I think you mentioned make sure it's all in one account, but the pro rata rule, that, put it differently, just means that, let's say if you have 10, you contribute the $6,000 example, that limit. But if you have like $150,000 in the 401k, when they calculate the taxes payable, do they consider it all? So it's actually 156 and not just the 6? The
pro rata rule applies to other IRAs. So if you had like a separate $10,000 IRA and then you put in $6,000 and you try to convert the $6,000 they'll
16,000.
try to tax you on that 10 as well. Okay. So the way to get around that is to combine all of your other IRA money into your 401k. So
have it all. So make it simple and have it all in one place.
Yeah. All right. We should probably go to our community building event now.
Yes.
So I'm going to send everybody to breakout rooms. I know some people here don't have video on. So if you end up in a breakout room with nobody, feel free to come back to the main room and I'll be in the main room. So Brian, you want to give the question?
Yes. For today's community building topic of the day, we've got two. So what was your first job and what did you learn from it that stuck with you today? So when you go into your breakout rooms, talk about your first job. What did you learn from it that still resonates with you to this day? All right. So Ed, send us to the rooms.
8 minutes or so.
All right. Sounds good.
Much better in shape. I see your Strava runs, Andrew, and I'm like, oh, this is bad. You will beat me. If we did the mile donut challenge, I am genuflecting and giving you the donuts, like for sure.
I can become Andrew #1 finally.
You are Andrew. You are Andrew. No, you've been that for years. We don't have to. We can hold a race to let everyone know for sure. But yes, yeah,
I'm in.
Yeah.
Nice. Welcome back, everyone. I hope everyone had fun with those breakout sessions. What we like to do is we like to take we like to note down fun responses from people. So if you had some fun answers from your breakout session on the question, what was your first job and what did you learn that stuck with you today, type it into the chat and we'll share it at our next event. The question we had last session, our January event, was what was your dream job when you were 10 years old? And I wanted to share some of the answers that we got back. They're pretty funny. So without naming any names, let's see. One person said, my dream was to be a race car driver. Ed, I'll call you out. You said your dream was to be a toy store owner, getting to play with toys all day. Nice for 10-year-old Ed.
Genius.
We got a couple of baseball ones. One person said shortstop for the Yankees, but he's not good at baseball, so that didn't work out there. Another person said MLB. And then we got marine biologist. I love that one. For me, my answer was I wanted to be a paleontologist because I was a big dinosaurs kid. But unfortunately that didn't pan out. But, oh well. All right, so type your answers into the chat and we'll share them at our next meetup. All right, so now without further ado, we'll jump into our last segment, the Q&A with our guest speaker, Andrew Stanco. Quick background on Andrew. He currently works at the fintech startup One, which connects people with their money. There he works in operations to make those connections a reality. Previously, he worked at General Electric's Energy Financial Services division as a commercial underwriter and portfolio manager, where he financed natural gas and renewable energy projects. Long ago, Andrew went to school with Bryant at NYU, but decided to learn history instead of finance or accounting. That made things challenging when they worked together in EY's financial services office. But of course, Andrew has realized much success since then. Andrew, I can't believe you put this in your bio. You credit me with your study plan
so true.
For the CFA when we were on the same client, and that somehow made you decide to become a CFA charter holder as well. So a lot to digest there. Andrew and I essentially have known each other since 2010, 2011. So it's been a long time. Andrew, welcome. Glad to have you as a guest speaker.
Thank you so much. And yeah, I had to write that bio. I didn't know if you were going to read it, but on the off chance that you did, I had that is partially true. I remember you going through, like, you're talking about studying for the CFA, and I'm like, oh my God, like, I need to study harder. Like, so yeah. No, yeah, sure. No, super happy to be here. Thanks so much. Glad we could, reconnect, talk, and it's just exciting to be here. And every time I go in the breakout sessions, I always have a ton of fun. So no, really, really a pleasure.
Awesome. Well, Andrew, we'll jump right into it with some
Sure.
questions of my own, and then we'll leave some time at the end for Q&A from the rest of the community.
Sure.
So, so I think to touch on your academic background. So you know, studying history at NYU and then getting into financial services, getting into the business side. What were the challenges you faced, you know, breaking into finance with a history major, and what was the motivation there?
Sure, it definitely makes you interesting, if not employable. Okay, like especially because we graduated in 2010, which was also another challenging / horrendous time to like look for a job as like a liberal arts major. So definitely a little bit of luck, a little bit of networking, and tell you what, like it was a tough time. Like, you know, definitely got a little help from some friend in the firm, you know, Ellen Ellen Polanski, who's tremendous in terms of helping me get in the door. So I had a little bit of like unearned just gratitude for that. But then the second I got in, right, I'm like, oh wow, like there are people like you, right, you know, other people as well who are like very qualified, like they very much know what to do. And it was just setting myself on the path to like educate myself, train myself, you know, understand that equal sign is what you need to make an Excel formula work. Like we're at that level. Like doing all that was super positive, and that became a really good lesson that served me in my career as I changed multiple times. So a little bit of luck, a little bit of hustle, that combination, you know, seems to have done well for me. Yeah. So in the big answer, yeah.
Right. And you know, the kind of the studying to catch up, you know, what were the ways in which you closed the gap? Because as you mentioned, you didn't have that background, but you worked diligently to study up and close that gap. What were some of the things that you did?
Sure. So I love so it's like two things. Like one, whichever learning method works for you, go do that. Like my best friend loves podcasts for like learning, and I just listen to EDM and go running. Like not for me. Like I love reading though. And like the combination of like just like being consistent and then finding a learning method that works for you, I think really helps. Because every day I'd like, you know, be in a little early, like reading, you know, Bloomberg articles, you know, reading different journal, like reading the Dodd-Frank legislation, right? Like it's doing that stuff to the point that Ed was making about compound interest. There's the same thing that happens for your own personal development. Like it starts very, very small. And then over time, it just compounds on itself and it becomes massive, right? And like I firmly believe that, because that'll help you learn anything. Like consistently applying yourself over time to like any new topic, like you'll make gains, like fitness, you know, learning about semiconductor manufacturing, fintech, like go for it. Like just you put in that time and effort and you'll see gains. That's my, I'll get off my soapbox, but that's the answer I'd say.
No, absolutely, Andrew. I mean, you have to have, you know, I think what's clear is you have to have a passion for the stuff to make you go and learn it, right? If it's not your background. So where does your passion for finance come from?
So that's a great question. I'd say there are two answers to it though. It's like, I've always been super curious about the way the world works, right? That passion manifests itself as curiosity, and finance is just a great way to explain that, right? You know, cash flows, income statements, lines of business, demand drivers. It gives you this language and this vocabulary. I think a lot of people here have this too, to understand why something's happening in the world and like what are the reasons behind it. But I'd say even more so than passion, like there are days when you're tired. There are days when it's rainy and foggy and you have to drag yourself into work. And like those are the days you need the discipline. And if you have that, those are the days you're going to like make a difference. Because like you're not going to be passionate every day. It's like you're just a human being. Mm-hmm. But the days like, yeah, the days you don't feel like it are the days you have to go. So
right. Yeah. So you were at EY. So you got into EY, you know, thanks to dedicated, a little bit of help, but you got in, and your dedication and discipline took you the rest of the way to make the job work. And then from EY, you went to GE Capital, which no longer exists, which kind of has an interesting history there. What did you do at GE Capital?
So like there's another theme here, which is like networking, like, you know, helping others. Someone called me up, like someone who worked at EY, then worked at GE Capital, and was like, "Hey, Andrew, you know, GE Capital is growing, right? At least the regulatory arm of GE Capital is growing, which is probably a sign. Do you want to come interview for a job?" I'm like, "Sure, absolutely." You know, like the job, like the team, you know, decided to make the switch. So there was that there. But then again, it's like the same new challenge over again. Like, you know, don't necessarily know, you have to learn how this like this massive internal bank that's like bolted on to an industrial company works, you know, and then you just, it's like that same process kind of started over again, of learning and growing. And, but it was great. Like, you know, it's a great new challenge. Like, you know, they did a ton of things from, you know, manufacturing aircraft engines and financing them to financing offshore wind turbines. You know, it was a great experience that was prompted by a lot of the things that I learned at EY, let's say.
And there's a little bit of an interesting history as well with GE Capital on you know, where that went. GE Capital, you know, sold off a lot of its financing divisions. You know, one of those arms became Synchrony Bank, but then another arm went to Goldman. Is that right, Andrew?
Yeah. Oh, you're right. So yeah, we have been talking like, yes. So there's always like, if you like history, you like finance, to tie this stuff together. So Marcus, if you like fintech, right? That's GE, like GE's. Ooh, that's Goldman's now. You know, very slick, very polished, consumer-facing arm, right? And that used to be a bank at GE. We literally called it the Utah Bank because it was the Utah Bank. Yep. Like, it's the internet Utah Bank. You know, it's like, okay, that's what we have, right? And we sold it in 2016, right? Goldman took it over. Like, they've done tremendous, you know, things with it, right? It's, you know, it's a very, very polished, very competitive experience, you know, great bank. But like, yeah, like that's the cool thing about bringing all this stuff together, is that my love of history never went away. It just became a way for me to guide my career and to like learn and grow about certain things. So
I love that. And then you went again from GE to One, and you followed a similar approach, a similar theme brought you to One. How'd you get into One?
Similar theme. Someone who used to work at GE, like this is a pattern, right? Someone who used to work at GE, right? He's a tremendous individual, named Jack, like fantastic. He works at One. He's like, hey, Andrew, like you did a great job at GE. Like, do you want to come like interview, you know, for One? And I was like, oh yeah, sure. Absolutely. Like, you know, I talked, there was a moment where I'm like, I don't know, it's a startup. Like, you know, I got a little scared, talked me off the ledge. He won't say that, but he did. You know, went out to go interview for the job in San Francisco. It was beautiful. Like, I was like, I'm going to be working in downtown San Francisco. Then COVID hit, did none of that, but it's same template again. You know, positive connection, like, you know, just knowing people, treating them well, doing a good job, plus now having to go learn a brand new industry that's kind of related to what I did before. So that's, you know, and it's that same template, sitting there, learning every day, reading, signing up for a bunch of different debit cards from all our competitors, you know, all that same stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What are some, so now you've worked, you know, kind of across the board. You've worked at, you know, in consulting, you've worked at
Sure.
You know, a large corporation, and now at a, you know, at a startup. What are some of the key differences, and what are some of the pros and cons, you know, going into it, working at a startup?
So we only have like a few minutes. So like, this is a fantastic topic that you can go crazy about. But like, I remember at EY, right, you'll do a bunch of great work, you'll understand a problem, and then let's say sometimes you don't get a chance to deliver and execute on it, right? It's just the nature of the business. You know, in a startup, you are doing that. Like, you are living in the business problem, right? In the growth, in the struggle. And that's thrilling. And I really, really love that, especially because like the team at One is amazing. Like, they're a great group of people. And even though it's very, very challenging, you're sitting there solving problems that you both can see the results in, which is great. And you also have a stake, like you have like a very vested, powerful interest beyond the rote finances to watch it grow and prosper. So that's the one thing. I'd say, like, you know, GE, like, you learn how to communicate, you learn how to navigate, and it's the same thing in EY in a larger organization. Like, you know, that's where there's like, you know, reporting to different levels, different business units. It's a slightly different skill set that I'm glad I have too. I mean, you also like learn how to, like, you know, do a commercial deal and, you know, and you know, navigate that. So very, very cool too. So.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure I give enough time for Q&A from the audience, because I could go on and on forever with questions. So I want to open the floor to any questions from our community members here. So you know, feel free to, you know, raise your hand and we'll unmute you so you can ask your question, or type it into the chat if you prefer.
You can also just unmute yourself.
Yeah.
I'll ask the question,
Andrew. For when you're hiring at One, or any hires you've done, that just you conducting the interviews, what are you looking for when you're kind of looking at that applicant?
Great point. Great point. Like, so this is something I think also applied to me when I was doing the job, right? Because they were not as, when I interviewed at One, they were less focused on like my energy project finance. Like, we're a digital bank. We're not going to go like buy a pipeline in West Texas and manage it. Like, they don't care about that. It's a great point. It's the same thing I look for. Like, they were looking for like curiosity, adaptability, like hard work, because the problems of today are not the problems of tomorrow, like in a startup by definition. So having that flexibility, having that adaptability, like being able to understand different problems and like grind through until they're done, that was something that both like I tried to promote when I was, in the interview, and I guess it kind of worked, right? And then like also look forward to, because oftentimes it's like you always hear like, I want a fresh perspective. And, sometimes experience matters, and sometimes looking at it differently is what's going to make us differentiate ourselves from our competitors, or it's going to let us, deliver a great product. So like, that's what I'd say matters most. The other thing I got to say, just to hammer it down, is that you're like, you look very, very intensely at like, you're very curious to answer two strong questions. Like, can they do the job? And do I want to work with them? Because eventually you'll be on a Slack call with them at 2:00 in the morning, trying to figure out a bug that some user found on Twitter. And you're going to really want to care that that person is a cool person too. So like, they have you. So.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good to see you.
Yeah. I have a question. So because you are at a fintech, right?
Sure.
So kind of echoing off the previous question, did they actually expect you to be kind of able to navigate the system on the back end?
Yeah. So like, okay, so I don't have to code, thankfully. Like, we have a very sharp, like amazing engineering team. But like, the more I can say, the more you can do other people's jobs as well, like the better. Like, that's when the startup feels like it's amazing. Like when the marketers are helping, do something for customer experience, when the engineers are answering questions on Twitter, like when the ops people are helping write SQL queries to understand the data, like that's where you feel like we're onto something special, like that, if that makes sense. So I'm not going to be sitting there. I'll help write Jira tickets. Let's say those are like the tickets that go into engineering, help them think it through. But thankfully, God knows if I'm coding, we are bad. We are in a bad shot. Like, everybody, it's FDIC insured, guys. It's FDIC insured, but like we gotta,
So I want to pause for a second, and just to make clear, can you tell everyone, what is One's mission, and why are you different from other digital banks or traditional banks?
That's a great point. So before I give you the answer, I'll say that like I chose to work at One, right? And One is my primary bank, and those can, like, any judgments you have are totally valid. And ultimately, whether you think we do our job, it's completely up to you, right? That's the definition of being in a market, right? So One is like fundamentally, I'll give my answer rather than the marketing answer. One is the bank I want to use, right? That's why you get up there and try to build it, right? So many times, right, you're working with a bank can be frustrating. It can be impersonal, right? It can be slow and inefficient, right? Can we build something that's simple and effective? Can we build something that, basically aligns with my million year, right? How do you get financially stronger, right? Can you build a company to answer that question? And ultimately you, the customer, anybody who tries us will be the judge of that. But that's what I want to do, right? Yeah. Oh, look at that, Brian. Brian, yeah, get that referral link. I appreciate the hustle. But yeah, that's the answer, right? It's a digital bank. Like, ultimately, where you park your money, right? Where you put where you center your financial life is a very personal, very powerful choice. And we want to treat that with respect and care and do something incredible with it. Like, that's ultimately what I've thought about, because it cannot be fun, like on Christmas Eve, trying to figure out an issue, right? And to your point, the passion and the drive and the commitment, that's what like gets you through it, so.
Yeah, and I'll speak as well. I'm a customer of One. I love using you guys. It's so easy to transfer money. There are no minimum balances, and nowhere else is a bank going to give me a 3% interest rate with rates the way they are right now. Exactly. I don't know anyone else who's offering 3% interest to park your money in an account with them.
That's a great feature, right? That we have, and that was one where we're talking a lot now about complex. We're talking about backdoor Roth IRA. right? We're thinking about how can you make a real savings product, right? That helps a lot of people, that's very simple and to understand, and it kind of works for both of us, right? Like works for the company, right? You attach your paycheck and you can contribute, you know, up to 10% into, you know, the, I think it's capped like $1,000, right? You can contribute amount into that 3% savings pocket, you know, it works fantastic, right? Or you can also, every time you swipe your card, you know, we can round that up to the nearest dollar and then contribute that little excess amount from your checking account to the 3%. And like, that felt like a cool feature that matters. Like that can help a lot of people. Yeah. So like that was, I was really proud to help on that, like to, you know, to work with that. And it's something we're very proud of. So no, thank you.
Ed, did you have a question? Sorry, I think.
No, that was the question that I was going to ask, was the benefits of one. And I think Bryant, you kind of sold it in the chat. 3% autosave on direct deposits, and then 1% on all other savings. That's definitely higher than any other bank that I've really seen. So it doesn't sound like a lot, but as you saw with the Roth example,
3%'s a lot.
Little things that compound over time. That really add up.
Yeah, and the way we make it fair, right, is, yeah.
Sorry, what was that, Amy?
I'm just saying that I'm sold by Bryant.
Perfect.
Right now.
Perfect.
Okay, so we got some activity in the chat here. People are like asking for the website. I'm putting my referral link.
There you go. Yeah, you can put your referral link. I feel bad if it's mine.
Drop the link. You know, it's all good. So you know, one thing I notice about One is you've got a pretty high caliber team over there. Your founder is a serial founder, was involved in PayPal and Personal Capital, and you have the CEO Brian Hamilton. What's it like, you know, working with kind of this you know, well-established you know, team of people?
It's good. Like, it's great. Like it's really great, actually, because what I realize now more so, like, think about an EY, right? Like, where the partner you're working with, right, has an outside impact on how the engagement runs, how you respond to problems. And like, I definitely, like, I don't know if Ryan's ever going to hear this, because I'll compliment him right now to his face, but no, he does a great job actually of that. Like, in terms of both setting a high standard, because this is like a very difficult task, like launching a bank in the middle of a pandemic that's like virtually unknown is quite challenging. Like, to put it nicely, to, like, you can say insane and you would not technically be wrong. Like, it's quite hard, right? But in terms of both expecting the best from us and then also delivering the best in terms of helping us out and in terms of recognizing us, and like, that leadership totally permeates, right? Like, that tone, you hear a lot when you're at GE and you're talking to the Fed about tone from the top or culture. And all these different places were so right to hone in on the way culture and leadership impact the company, because when it's good, you really feel empowered to just go do great things and to like talk about mistakes and to solve problems. And when it doesn't work, then it just feels terrible, right? So no, we're great. Like, it's great to have a high caliber team and to just watch to go see what we can do.
And I know you told me as well, it's fun to be on the company Slack channel, and everyone's Slack icons are Pokemon or
so
MCU
like,
characters.
So like, yeah. So like, as a personal thing, right? So Brian and I were talking, ahead of this. And yes, like, we've, as 2020 and 2021 were on, it went from everybody having pictures of their own personal, like, very professional, you know, me, to like, now I'm Bulbasaur and I'm like talking to like external consultants, like my Slack icon's a Pokemon, you know, someone is a Muppet, right? Someone else is the Marvel character. It's like, now it's gone insane, like, in a good way, like, to keep us all safe and like thinking clearly. Now, yeah, everyone has their own Slack icon whenever they feel like it. So it's hilarious. So those are the small cool things about a startup. Probably could not do in GE.
I love how, I love how at you know, digitally, like, just breaking down barriers. You know, we don't have to put a front, you know, on who we are. We can express ourselves a little bit more, dress more comfortably. You know, I think it's really a great change. Yeah. Hopefully that sticks once we go back to work.
I hope so.
I know we're up against the hour, but maybe some parting remarks. Andrew, what are your thoughts on the trends in fintech, and where do you see that going? Crypto, digital banking, et cetera.
Great question. Also a question I may ask sometimes in interviews, right? Like everything seems to be changing all at once, right? So if you feel anxious, that's a good, I think you're not wrong. Like you're correct, because payments, banking, any lens, like the fundamentals of finance that have worked for, let's say, 20 or 30 years, right, are all changing, right? All at once. And that's great. Like it's scary, but that's great, because if you want to make a change, if you don't like where you are and you want to do something different, all of that change means that there's opportunity for you, right? It means that nobody has the expertise. And it means that if you can put in the work, you can figure something out, you can make an impact. Like that'd be my parting words. Like it's that it can be scary, but scary and good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you to all of our speakers today. Thank you everyone for joining. We hope you had an awesome session. I know I definitely got a lot out of it. We hope all of you join us for our next month's session. We're lining up an entrepreneur who started a online coaching business, which is now a ed tech company in Singapore. So the meeting might be a little bit earlier than normal, but we'll see what we can do about time zone differences. Andrew, thanks so much for being our guest speaker this month. Amy, congratulations on the new job at Wellington. Hope to hear more about that. And everyone, hope to see you next month. Have a great rest of your weekend.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care, everyone.
Thanks.
Talk to you soon.
Take care.